All right, so let's talk about Wayne Gretzky, the great one, right? But today, we're going to peel back the curtain. We're going way beyond the highlight reels, beyond the stats that just seem impossible. We're going to dig into this wild idea that his talent, it wasn't magic. It was a system, a predictable, even replicable system that he built from scratch. And this isn't about taking down a legend, not at all. It's about getting inside the mind of a genius and understanding the architecture of how he did it.
Okay, so here's the game plan for today. We're going to start with the myth, the legend of Gretzky. Then we'll get into the big problem he had to solve in the super physical era he played in. After that, we'll break down his secret weapon, the system of anticipation, his famous office, and how he used visualization. And we'll wrap it all up with an equation you can actually apply yourself. So let's dive right in.
So first up, the Gretzky myth. I mean, you know the name, right? It's practically a synonym for, effortless genius. When you watch old clips of him, it's just bizarre. It never looks like he's skating that hard, but somehow, poof, he's just there, right where the puck is about to be. Again and again. It got to the point where even other pros were like, this guy isn't playing the same game as us. It felt like he was operating on a whole other level.
And then you get to the numbers, and wow, 2,857 career points? I mean, that's a number that just doesn't even feel real. But here's the stat that breaks everyone's brain. You've probably heard it, but just let it sink in again. If you took away every single goal Wayne Gretzky ever scored, he'd still be the all-time leading scorer in NHL history just from his assists. That is absolutely insane. It's so far beyond anyone else, it feels unbreakable. Like it has to be magic. It has to be some kind of God-given natural talent, right?
Well, what if it wasn't magic at all? What if that whole story we tell ourselves about natural talent is just wrong? What if his genius wasn't a gift he was born with, but something he invented? A system he had to engineer, piece by piece, starting as a little kid, all to solve a very specific, and for him, a very, very dangerous problem. And that is what we're going to dig into, because when you see the blueprint, you realize it applies to way more than just hockey.
All right, section 2. To really get Gretzky's system, you first have to get the world he was thrown into. We've got to go back in time to the NHL of the 70s and 80s. And listen, this was not the game you see today. This was a world built for big, tough, intimidating guys. It was a league of brawlers.
So back then, the league was absolutely dominated by teams like the Philadelphia Flyers. You might know them as the Broad Street Bullies, and they earned that nickname. The whole business of hockey had figured out that violence sold tickets. Big hits, scary fights, that's what put people in the seats. So the hit wasn't just part of the game, it was a product, a commodity. And if you were building a team, you weren't looking for skaters, you were looking for enforcers. The whole game was built around size and pure brute force.
And this really lays out the fundamental conflict, right? On one side, you've got the standard NHL player of the era. They were bigger, they were faster, they were stronger, and their whole game was reactive. They waited for you to make a move, and then they just crush you. But then you have Gretzky's problem. He was smaller. He was actually slower in a straight-line race. He was lighter than pretty much everyone. If he tried to play their game, the reactive, physical game, he would have been destroyed. It was a total death trap for a guy his size.
And this right here is the absolute key to everything. He couldn't play their game, so he just didn't. He invented a completely new one. He had no choice but to throw out the whole playbook of strength and reaction. And that's how his biggest weakness, his size, became his greatest weapon. He had what the source material calls strategic sovereignty. Since he couldn't win with his body, he had to win with his brain. He had to build an engine that could predict the future. He had to figure out the game's secret code.
So how do you build a predictive engine like that? Well, it didn't happen in some fancy NHL facility. Nope, it all started way, way earlier in a backyard in Brantford, Ontario, on a little homemade rink his dad Wally built that would later be known as the Wally Coliseum. Yeah, we've all heard the cute story about the little kid skating for hours in his backyard, but what we're talking about here was way more than just practice. That rink was his laboratory. Think about it. First, you have the rink itself. He knew every single inch of it, every weird carom the puck would take off the boards. Then you have those drills with bleach bottles and cans. This wasn't just about stick handling. His dad would have him fire the puck off the boards at very specific angles over and over so he could learn exactly how it would bounce to land perfectly on his stick. He was basically running thousands of physics experiments. He was mastering the geometry of the game, turning what looks like a chaotic bounce into a predictable, repeatable science.
And all that work in his backyard lab, it all built up to this core philosophy, which we can call temporal engineering. You know his famous quote, right? "I skate to where the puck is going, not where it has been." Well, that wasn't just a catchy line for a commercial. It was his entire operating system in a nutshell. It's this incredibly powerful idea of basing your actions on where the game will be in 2 seconds, not where it is right now. It's a complete rejection of reactive thinking. He wasn't guessing. He was calculating probabilities, predicting the future a split second before anyone else even saw the present.
This thinking led him to a rule that just turned the whole sport on its head. See, for every other player, reacting fast was a good thing, right? You'd get praised for it. But for Gretzky, if he found himself reacting, he knew he'd already screwed up. He'd made a mistake. Reaction is the floor. Anticipation is the ceiling. For him, reacting was the absolute bare minimum. The real game, the one he was winning, was played entirely in the future. It was all about anticipation.
So that's the theory. But what did this system of anticipation actually look like on the ice during a game? Well, the best, most famous example is a little patch of ice he made his own. A spot that became so legendary it got its own name, the office.
Remember, he had to play a different game. He couldn't go to war with the giant defenseman right in front of the goalie. That's where they wanted him. So he found this piece of overlooked real estate, the space behind the net. Now at the time, everyone thought that was useless ice. You can't score from back there, right? It was a dead zone. But Gretzky saw it as the single most powerful spot on the entire rink, and he turned that dead zone into the most dangerous place an opponent could be.
Okay, so let's break down why this was so brilliant. First off, the net itself acted like a shield. Big defenders couldn't just run him over back there. Second, it gave him this perfect panoramic view of the entire rink. He could see everything develop in front of him, like a quarterback. Third, he got to control the pace of the game. He wasn't frantically chasing the puck. He was basically the calm center of the storm, slowing everything down to his speed. And from back there, he wasn't just passing, he was doing something called destination activation. He was deciding where the puck was going to go next, creating the play before it even happened. And finally, when defenders got frustrated and came after him, he'd use their own aggression against them, pulling them out of position and opening up huge passing lanes for his teammates. It was just sheer genius.
Okay, but the system wasn't just physical. It wasn't just about his backyard rink or his office behind the net. The final piece of the puzzle, and maybe the most important one, was all mental. It's what tied everything together. This was the software that ran on all that physical hardware he'd built. It was all about what he did before he even put his skates on. He looked at his mind as a weapon, specifically a pattern recognition weapon. So what does that mean? Well, think about a typical locker room before a game. You've got guys blasting music, getting pumped up. But Gretzky, he was famously quiet. He was sitting there, eyes closed, running simulations. He was basically playing the game in his head over and over before it started. He was looking for patterns, planning his moves, and solving problems before they ever even happened on the ice.
And this wasn't just daydreaming. It was a whole system. Step 1, he'd audit the geometry. He'd visualize how the puck moves back and forth, and from that, he could predict when a defender was about to commit. Step 2, he'd build a mental map. He'd run through all the if-then scenarios. If my winger cuts here, the pass goes there. If their defenseman slides over, I'll go this way. He was building a fortress of possibilities in his mind. And all of that led to step 3, this amazing idea called kinetic honesty. It means by the time he actually got on the ice, the thinking was already done. His mind had already solved the puzzle. His body was just executing the code. The physical plays were just a formality, because he'd already won the game in his head.
So when you put it all together, you realize Gretzky's real legacy isn't just his name on a bunch of trophies. It's a formula. It's a universal equation for how you can engineer greatness in anything, really. It's about throwing out reaction and building a system of anticipation.
So here's the first part of the equation, spatial awareness. This goes right back to his backyard rink. It's about developing a deep, almost obsessive understanding of your environment. And this isn't just for hockey. In business, it's knowing who the key players are and how information flows. If you're an artist, it's understanding composition. It's about seeing the hidden geometry in whatever world you operate in.
Okay, so you take that spatial awareness and you add the second ingredient, temporal anticipation, and this is the real game changer. This is where you fully commit to that idea that reaction is the floor, anticipation is the ceiling. You stop just dealing with today's problems and you start operating based on where your field is going to be tomorrow. It's like a grandmaster in chess. They aren't reacting to the last move, they're thinking 10 moves ahead, building the future they want.
And when you put those two things together, that deep spatial awareness plus that relentless anticipation of the future, what you get is what we're calling sovereign greatness. And this is an incredible state to be in. It's when you stop reacting to your environment
and your environment starts reacting to you. Suddenly, everyone else is playing catch-up. Your competitors, your colleagues, they have to adjust to what you're doing because you're already living in the future.
So this brings us to the final question, and it's not about Wayne Gretzky anymore. It's about you. What is your backyard rink? What's that small, everyday thing in your life that you could turn into a laboratory? Maybe it's your inbox. Instead of just reacting to emails, could you anticipate the flow of a project? Maybe it's your daily schedule. What's the one routine thing you do that you could stop reacting to and start anticipating, so you can totally change the game you're playing?
Because in the end, that's Gretzky's real secret. Greatness isn't magic. It's not some gift from the heavens. It's a logical result. It's the output of a system. The truth, as they say, is in the logic, and your vision is the code for your greatness. He didn't just teach us how to play hockey. He proved that building a system to anticipate the future is the only real way to win. And maybe, just maybe, it's the only real antidote to failure.